It always does me like that. Hello, guys, and welcome to another Monday. Yes, another Monday of Authentic Leadership 101. And it is me again with my fabulous host, Miss Tracy Borreson. We're bringing her in. I am tongue tied today, but it is Monday and it is another week. And it is October, people. It is October. We have officially been on a month. It's
Boom.
been like we just dropped it in a month's time, and it's just like it's amazing some of the things that I've seen from different ones who come by. We appreciate you continually come by, continually support. Bring your questions, bring your topics. We definitely want to make sure that we cover them so we can show you about authentic leadership. And today we're going to be talking about something that it's really, really essential, and we're going to be talking about how to reset from leader to authentic leader. So we're going to delve into that. Everybody that's come back, please drop in the comments where you're tuning in from. Yes, thank you, Jeff, for tuning in. I did send out a lot of invitations this week because I had a lot of people that got lost in the sauce on last week with the snafu, with the time. So I'm looking for some people to drop by, say hello, say where you're tuning in from, drop it in the comments. But as of right now, we're going to get it started. What's going on, Tracy?
I'm so excited to talk about this topic. I'm excited to hear if you guys are joining us live. We want you guys in this conversation. This is a conversation with all of us, not just the two of us, although if you know us, Carl, Shawn, and myself, we can do a lot of talking.
We can have a conversation. We
can talk for a very long time, but we want to include you guys in the conversation. So please drop your insights, your thoughts, your comments, your questions, all the things, because we want everybody to participate. Because specifically in this conversation today, I think the reason why a lot of people join us or look for solutions in this arena of authentic leader is because for some reason you are feeling either one of two things. You are not that, or you don't have that. You don't have authentic leadership in the company that you work for, in your past, in order to set yourself up for success in this arena. And so this is why we wanted to focus on this conversation today, because a lot of us, and if you guys know me, I went to business school. I followed the pretty standard corporate ladder, just work your way up here. And there's lots of things you learn about being a leader along the way, but there's not a lot of things that you learn about being yourself along the way. And so you have this kind of separation of what a leader should be and who I am. And the point of authentic leadership is us being able to bring all of these things together. So today what we want to do for you guys is break down some of those walls that you have between authenticity and leadership. And so again, specifically what I would call out to you guys to say, share with us your questions, what is something that is different in your head? Because everybody thinks about all of these words differently. You guys, if you follow Carl Shawn for a while, he's like the dictionary definition guy. And I'm not sure it was last episode, it might have been 2 episodes ago when we talked about there's a dictionary definition, but that doesn't mean that everybody has the same definition of things. Yes. So today we want to help break down those boundaries between what you think a leader is and what you think being yourself is, and how we can combine those into being authentic leader. So please drop your comments as you go and questions. Is there something that's on the top of your mind, Carl Shawn, that you want to start with? Maybe vulnerability? I don't know. Could vulnerability be at the top of your mind?
Hey, you read my mind, right? Vulnerability is always at the top of my mind. And I had an awesome show today, and I really was, I normally don't toot my own horn, but I really broke through, I think, some question and answers that people really had about vulnerability. And I was on the show, for those who may be watching me know, Rollis Fontana, if I'm saying his name correctly. And he's out in Houston, and he had me on the show today, and we were just talking about, is vulnerability really your strength? And he was coming at me. I had this kind of I wouldn't necessarily say interrogation, but I haven't had this really besides me just posting freely of how I felt about vulnerability that I really had to answer questions concerning it. And it gave me an awesome opportunity to kind of dissect some of the ways that particularly I really feel about it. And for all those who know me, I'm a dictionary guru. And when I say that, I don't mean that I love it. I just happened to read it as a young one and I got the definitions of it. But as I lived life, I kind of saw that a lot of those definitions didn't apply to Carl. Yes, there was a symmetry, so to speak, as what particular words meant, and I can grab those words. But a lot of the action words which they put in there, the verbs and those things, when I applied it to me, that didn't mean the same thing. So I started delving into that on my own conscious, and I just took that vulnerability, and I was like, wow, this is so misunderstood. The narrative is so very wrong. Like there's so much power in it. And then I took it a step further, and I said, how would that look in leadership? So when you're resetting from a leader, and when you think about the term leader, what does leader really mean to you? So, when we dissect a leader, it was one who leads, one who's able to lead. I mean, if you look at it from the top shelf, but you're looking at one who directs, one who's able to commit people to do or follow. These are leaders, and there's characteristics to those that oftentimes the ones that we work with that carry those titles are truly not manifesting those. So now we transition from leader, maybe title wise, and then we go to authentic leader, which is verb and action. How are you becoming authentic? And vulnerability to me is the number one piece to this puzzle. And when I say that, not so much as I talk about it, but I think it's true. Vulnerability allows you to build the leaderships to lead. It allows you to build the relationships, the authenticness to lead. And in that, then you have people that want to follow you. But I always ask the question to my clients, and when they're in leadership position, I say, do people really want to follow you? Not because you're at a title, not because they need a job, not because they're fearful of moving on, not because they're comfortable and they don't want to leave, but do people actually get a joy out of following you as their supervisor, their leader, their manager? And oftentimes I get leaders, I get stuck. They get stuck. I don't get stuck because I already know the answer. They get stuck and they look at it and they say, And if you can't answer that quickly, then there's something that you need to take inventory of as far as yourself and being a leader. And that's where we'll begin with that. That's some of my thoughts on it, just to go out the gate there, Tracy.
Yeah. And I think this is really interesting because like Carl, Shawn's all about vulnerability. Tracy, all about authenticity. So here's where these things are going to come together. I had this really interesting experience on the weekend. We had a lady by the name of Catherine Hodgins as a guest on the Be a Human in Business show. Okay. She's an insights coach is what she calls herself. And more so in the life coaching arena. But something that came up in that conversation was competition and how being competitive is a skill. And it was really interesting for me. And I'll tell you why, because I always thought being competitive was part of who I was. I thought that was part of the authentic Tracy was being competitive. And I built it into my life. I played competitive sports for a long time, and it was just like part of me. And it was just really interesting to think about it as a skill, because it is something you are taught. And then it was even crazier to think about it from the perspective of like, wow, I just got really good at being competitive because I practiced it a lot. And there are places in life where being competitive is good. And there are places in life where being competitive is not good and causes jealousy and all of these other kinds of things. But when I thought about it from an authenticity perspective, it's not so much that I am not competitive or not competitive. It's a skill I choose to implement. And I see vulnerability the same way, right? Vulnerability, the more you practice, the better you get at it. It's a skill. And so based on your authenticity, based on who you are, you get to decide which of those skills you invest your time in, right? So what are those things that feel aligned in you? We're not here to tell you guys who to be. That would be the exact opposite of the authentic leader, because it's you being you. Yes. And what does that you say in terms of leadership skills? So if I was going to give you a menu of leadership skills, and one of them was vulnerability, and one of them was competitiveness. You could choose. You can choose which ones feel right for you, and just look at it from that perspective of like, oh, was I choosing that because society tells me? Am I choosing to invest in a competitive skill because society deems that worthy versus a vulnerability skill which society deems as weakness, right? And we talked about that in episode 2 when we were talking about the pillars of being an authentic leader. So as long as there's a narrative about vulnerability, just for example, because that's what we started talking about, that it's not good for a leader, then people will choose to invest in other skills. And so
Yes.
this is about wiping the slate clean of the skills and going back to what feels good for me, what feels genuine, what feels real, what feels like the truth, what feels good, right? What are the things that feel like I'm being a good representation of who I am? And just and ask the question, oh, is that me? It takes, I love, like Robert here is sharing the word courage is courage, right? Like it takes courage to do all of these things. It takes courage to ask, like, oh, is that me? Or is that like, oh, I've been in corporate marketing for 15 years and corporate marketing says this is how you should be to get good in this arena, but like I'm not really like that. And it's really interesting too. I want to just play off of Robert's comment here a little bit more because he's mentioning comfort zones. And it does take courage to step out of our comfort zone. But the thing that is so interesting about this is we got comfortable being someone we're not. Using skills that we didn't choose, that society just like told us were the right skills we should invest in, and not the ones that we're choosing. So it, like, I don't know if it blows everybody else's mind as much as it blows my mind, but we just got so good at not being ourselves. We got good at being what we thought we were supposed to be. And now when we come back to this is why I used the word reset when I was coming up with the title for today's episode, is it really is. It's breaking the ideas of what we've been taught a leader is, and we have to reset all of those expectations to even be on the track of authentic leader, to even give ourselves the space to choose vulnerability as a skill, because we've been taught to not choose that as a skill. So we need to reset our expectations to choose these kinds of things. And so, sorry, you know me, now I'm on my soapbox. But it just is so interesting to me about how like our current comfort zone isn't based on who we are. It's based on who we thought we should be. And now we're comfortable being who we thought we should be. But who we thought we should be isn't who we are. So now we need to reset.
Oh,
okay, I'm going to take
God.
a drink and you take that for a minute.
No, you've hit it right on the head, and this is what I was talking about earlier. And this is what I live by: change the narrative completely. And when you change the narrative, you drive what Robert is talking about. You drive the change. You drive change when you change the narrative. And we have gotten so much comfortable, and Jeff has said it too. We got to be comfortable being uncomfortable and doing the right things. And in doing the right things, it's not doing the things the world tells us. Absolutely. And that's just what I was sharing on the show that I was on earlier today. We've gotten so, and you kind of like summed it up in a nutshell, and I'll just piggyback off of that. We've gotten so comfortable being who we are not that we're okay with being who we're not. And when you say that, like, riddle me this, riddle me that, I feel like I'm in a Batman movie. But the objectivity of it is that we've gotten comfortable with what society says a leader should be. Therefore, we put our measurements and we put that as our status quo to what we're going to achieve. And when we get to that plateau, if you should call it that, we think that we're okay. We're in leadership. I don't think we talk about leadership like we talk about leaders and leaderships nearly every single day, if not just back and forth with where we are, but we'll just keep it confined to the business world. we talk in those terms, but have you ever had anybody to actually try to define leadership? I mean, if you actually had a leader that could tell you what leadership was, and these are the kind of things that I kind of delve in, because if you start at a particular place in your leadership, such as the vulnerability and the ability to, because we can all go into the dictionary and we can pick out, what it says, like the Merriam-Webster said, leaders, like someone who can see how things can be improved and rallies people to move toward a better vision. Leaders can kind of like work their vision and make it a reality by putting people first. And I mean, we get all of those, I won't even say cliches, but for lack of a better term, that's what I'll use, those cliches terms, and we pass it on to, such as we pass on traditions and bad habits through families. They're generational. They become generational. And no one stands up with the authority that's in them to be different, because everybody has this authority. That's where the vulnerability kicked in. And the vulnerability tells me that doesn't jive with me, because it's not really me. And see, that's when you get into the part of vulnerability and changing the narrative of it. So through my vulnerability, I'm going to show you what it really should be. And yes, I'm going to take criticism from it. See, this is where people get the disconnect. The criticism is not to hurt you because of the vulnerability you're showing. The criticism in those things is to hurt you because you're changing the tradition of what people normally see that as. So when you come with your vulnerable self, which is really your authentic self, trying to do things the way that it should be, people that have rode that train of wrong for so long, they tend to act out and do things to you in order to perform the hurt. So what do? Obviously, we're preservation, we self-preservation. So what we do, we crawl back into our turtle shell, and it's just hard. No one can get us out. But when you talk about that, if you can be vulnerable, and you added that, I think I said it a couple of shows ago, when you have that diversity and that vulnerability together, it actually bridges the inclusion. That same thing works for you. And I said, if you continue that consistently, when I first came on to just talk about that just a little bit, when I first came on to LinkedIn, I thought about me as myself doing teaching and training and workshops and just talking to different people and in leadership doing those things. And I thought about all the times that I would use vulnerability in my stories of things that have happened to me that have made me better, and I've shared with others to make them better. And I said, that's probably not going to fly. This is just what creeps in if you're not self-aware. I said, oh man, LinkedIn is like this big profile with these business people, these professionals, and they want to see that you got it all together, that you like on top, your tie is all the way up, your shirt is crisp. Like, it's so stuffy. And I said, you know what? I've been doing this for years. How about if I just put it out there and then I just work with what I know? I don't have to find no niche. I got a niche. I wasn't one that said, okay, now you're a consultant. How can you fit in? I said, I'm doing vulnerability and I'm a consultant, so I fit in. And these are the things that empower you to make you that, to make you that kind of way. And I didn't want to get on my soapbox either, but it's just one of those things that you hit it and you really struck a chord with me, because we oftentimes see those that are carrying on these crises of initiation or imitation, should I say. I am a leader. Okay, you're a leader. What does that mean beside what you saw in Merriam-Webster? How are you defining that for the people that you're leading? How are you being that authentic leader to them so they can go back to you in their time of need? See, a leader is not just one, I'm going to work you like a horse and get all the work out of you. And then once the project is done, I'm done with you. Mm-hmm. How are they going to be able to come back to you and feel comfortable and say, you know what? I know we've been working on this project, but I got a few issues at home. And if I could, just for this week, work from home, how are you going to be able to respond to that authentically? Or are you going to go back in the shell and, well, I don't know what you want me to do. You got to come to work. But that's my high horse for right now. We got great comments. Kate, thank you, Kate. Leadership is the ability to listen with intent and to minimize conflict, confrontation through conversation. That is definitely a key to it. That is definitely a key to it. And Jeff as well.
And I think I love these comments. And one of the things that I really love about Kate's comment in particular is, like, Kate is sharing with us her definition of leadership. This is the whole point, is that everybody has a different definition of leadership. Right. And I don't think as a society we do a good job of figuring out what everybody's definition is so that we can use that strategically. because we do. We all interpret. We all have different experiences. We all have different education. We all have different backgrounds, different families, different cultures. And so dictionary may interpret it one way, but
Absolutely.
we all interpret it a different way. And so, okay, I'm going to give you guys an exercise. You want to do an exercise?
Yes.
This is one of my favorite exercises. You can do it with many things. This exercise, we're going to do it with your definition of a leader today. So if you guys have a pen and paper with you, Shawn did say, bring a pen and paper. If you don't have it, take it away. You can do it another time because I'm not going to give you a huge amount of time to do it today. Write down, what is a leader at the top of your page. And then give yourself, we won't do 10 minutes of dead air space today, but I want you guys to write whatever's coming to your brain right now. So Kate's got a whole bunch already. So you can just copy and paste, or you can use your computer if you want. What is a leader to you? What's a leader? Write down all the things. Keep asking yourself that question. Take it away and do 10 minutes and just say, what is a leader? And write all of those things down. At the end of that, I want you to look at the paper and I want you to decide what you decide is a leader. That's a leader because you said that's what a leader is, or that's because society has trained me that way, or that's what my dad showed up as, or that's what my first manager was like, or where are those? Why do you think that? Why do you think that is a leader? And at the end of the day, you have the power to decide which of those you keep and which of those you throw away. So in an activity of moving from leader to authentic leader is using what you think a leader is to make decisions about how you are going to lead people. And you can throw away anything that you don't think is true, that has been imprinted on you by whatever source it came from. And so when you do, and again, you can actually do this exercise with anything. I've done it with my definition of happy, right? You can do the same thing. And what you realize is what you say versus what other people say. And you don't have to include what other people say about leadership in your definition of leadership if you're in the process of doing this reset from leader to authentic leader. When we're talking about authentic leaders, it's only this is based on what you think, your definition of leadership. I also want you to try and peel away good leader versus bad leader, right? There are good and bad leaders for different types of people. You, as a leader, base your authentic leadership on what you think is right. What you think is right. Not what I've been using this example just because I think it's a drastic example. But what you think is right for a leader to do, not what Hitler thought was right for a leader to do, right? If you look at Hitler from a leadership perspective, he had a lot of people following him who believed in what he did, and not using him as an example because I believe in pretty much anything that he did. And that's why I use it as an example, is that you can decide. If you look at a leader like that and you're like, oh, actually, he did this piece that was inspired the people to follow him, but I don't really believe in following because of fear. Then don't. There is no one right way to be a leader. And that's why I love, and I hope you guys are still writing down things as you think of them, and write down things as we go through the show, because other things might pop up, and come back to it a month from now because you might have thought of more things. What is a leader to you? And which of those things did you decide to be? And which of those things did someone else decide you should be? And erase the things that are the things that someone else said, because they don't matter in your authentic leadership. They just don't matter in your definition. So just get rid of them. If you write down a whole bunch of things and all of it doesn't feel authentic, crumple up your paper and throw it away and start from scratch and say, okay, I don't have to be any of those things. I can choose to be those things if that's what feels right, but you don't have to be any of those things. It's about choosing what is right for you. And I also don't want you guys to think about the people you are leading. This is just an exercise that's about you. This is going to have impact on the people you are leading. But and I'll use just a personal experience of mine. I have had employees that I felt needed to be led a certain way. And therefore, I tried to change my leadership style to suit that. That is not sustainable for either party. So as long as I am showing up being someone I'm not, that's not being an authentic leader. And a lot of times when we look at, especially if you are a new leader and you've come into a team that you didn't have any hand in creating, you might think that you have to change your leadership style in order to take care of your people. And what I want you guys to take into consideration in that point is that what you're actually saying is that a leader, part of your definition of a leader, what is a leader, is that they're a person who takes care of the people, right? And so I want you guys to, we are not here, we are not doing this exercise for you to change who you are. We are here to get a baseline of what it is that we believe on a leadership, in a leadership capacity, on a leadership level. When we talk about leadership, what do you believe? And I want you guys to try to not let other people influence you. Or maybe some of those things you wrote down, you're like, oh, actually, I don't know that I believe that. But right now I'm showing up that way because I feel like it's required for me to take care of X person on my team. And so again, like, I just want you to be able to separate. It's an exercise in being able to separate what is and what is because you say so. And that's really the first step in hitting this reset from just moving from a leader to an authentic leader. And there might be a transition period, right? Like, I'm not going to say, like, you guys are going to get to do this exercise today and then go to work tomorrow and just throw out all the old stuff. And even if you wanted to, there's so much practice and so many habits that you have in being that other way. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And that's fine. So I also want to I want you guys to give yourself that space. If you're looking at this topic today and you're like, yes, I want to reset from just leader to authentic leader. I wish I could tell you it was like a light switch and you could just go to work tomorrow and be an authentic leader. But even for me, and I share this with people all the time, my life is authenticity. My whole job is authenticity, helping people find their authentic self and bringing that to work. I drink my own Kool-Aid in that arena. And even I am not authentic 100% of the time. And I will tell you, I am 98% of the time thinking about how to be more authentic. And even I'm not authentic all the time. So it's a process, it's a focus, right? The important thing is to know where to focus. And that's what an exercise like this gives you guys. It helps you to see what's my bubble of authentic leadership. And now I can focus on that. Now I can go to work and I can focus on doing the things that I believe to be important as a leader. And it's just the first step. It's a way to hold yourself accountable, right? Like, ooh, I really, like, one of the biggest things that's important to me is that the people feel taken care of. No, I actually have no feedback from my people at all about how well they feel like they're being taken care of. Maybe there's a feedback mechanism I could put into place. Maybe there's something I could include in annual reviews. And it starts to turn on your creative problem solving to reach the goals you're trying to reach. And there's just so much space, even if you wouldn't call your current working environment an authentic space, which is a conversation for a different episode. But there's so much space for you to be authentic in whatever work environment you have right now. But you can't be authentic if you don't know what authentic looks like for you. Yes. Stop
Yeah,
me, Carl Shawn.
and what does that authentic look like to you? I think that is the keyness, because of, as we go back into the definitions and what those really mean, and they could have really different meanings for everyone, but there's a similarity to what we think as individuals who are maybe leaders or not leaders, what we actually think authentic leader is. And we know some of the characteristics that they got to have or that we would like them to have. But you have to be walking in that. And it's just as such as in your life. You have to really be walking through that, and then it produces the authenticity. A lot of times we want to put the facade on the outside for someone to realize, or to someone to maybe even think or categorize us as authentic because we put it on the outside. But the authenticness comes from actually the lifestyle, living it and being genuine in who you are. That's what people get to see as authentic. And we got the misconception is that if I paint this picture on the outside, people in general are not smart enough to realize, because this is our thinking. We won't actually come out and say it, but I'm going to help you guys out tonight. I'm going to say it for you. Sometimes we play those parts thinking that this mask can hide who we are. But people have keen sense of understanding, picking up. They have all kind of things going on in senses, or whatever you want to call it, discernment, or whatever term that you want to use, that they can see right through that. And not oftentimes people say it to you, not all the time, because people don't want to put you out there. They don't want to embarrass you, or they don't want, be that kind of person towards you. But a lot of times when you're hiding these things and you're masking these things, people have already picked up that you're not who you are, or you're not who you say you are, or you don't know what you're doing. That's the worst one you can have as being a leader, right? Someone to say, I can't imagine, and I know that some have shared this as well. I've been in jobs and I've had people over me, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, how did you get this job? How did you get this job? Really? Because you have no idea, no clue as to what we need to be doing here. But of course, I wouldn't say that because I'm not one to put someone out there like that. But oftentimes, when you're authentic with it and you bring that to people, and that's where I said the vulnerability kicks in, because you have to come to a point in your establishment as a leader. Okay, I've been placed in this position, but I don't have all the answers. So a lot of times we look for leaders to have them, but the real leader says, I don't have all the answers. That's why I have you guys. So us as a team, how about if us work together? Now, how can you ask them to do that? You have to build the vulnerability relationships. You have to build those relationships and get to understand those that you're working with. And when you understand that, then there's an ability for you guys to work cohesively as a team, instead of me being the leader and you the pheasant, so to speak, right? So when you get this understanding down as a dynamic as a leader, then you can understand that, okay, being genuine, being self-aware, being absorbent of the situation, being understanding that I don't have all the answers, leaning and depending on those who I lead. That's part of leadership as well. I got to be able to lean and depend on you, because you're also, that does a couple of things, and it grows those that you're in lead of. First and foremost, that dependence on them allows you to see and allow them to see that you trust their value, what they're bringing to the table, regardless of the numbers, regardless of the performance, regardless of it. Once I've given you an assignment and I'm leaning on you to do that, now I've shown to you that I value what you bring. That's the ultimate in a relationship, a work relationship, especially. We got a relationship where your leader understands the value that you bring and they respect that. That's a dynamic that all leaders would like to have when you have to delegate and do things like this. So the authentic, it goes further than you just understanding what the word authentic means. The actions of the authentic makes it authentic. And we can't continue to keep on have conversations about I'm an authentic leader when you're not vulnerable, when you're not even being truthful about what you can and what you can't do. Now, those various situations come up in leadership where you have fear of that. You have fear of someone knowing that. Absolutely. Absolutely. But what's the greater fear that I would have if somebody continue to look at me as a leader, knowing good and fine well that I don't know what I'm doing? That's more embarrassing to me than to ask for help. I just don't see it. I'd rather ask for help so we can get it done, for me to sit around like that. And I go back to the old school adage, and I'm sure everyone has heard this. The only dumb question is the one that's not asked. Right. So if I'm sitting there like I get all the answers and I'm not answering any questions, who's the real leader? Right. So
I think this comes up every episode, is the concept of trust.
yes,
and
it's
so
part of it.
it's and I just want to reiterate what you said, Shawn, about when we know when people are faking it, right? Like, we know when people are faking it, which means other people know when we're faking it. Okay,
Absolutely.
we're not that good unless you guys. I don't see any professional actors live with us today, which would be cool if we could get like Brad Pitt up here or something. But like, this is not our job. Our job is to not be professional actors. We're not trying to be something else than what we are. And we've incorporated that into the concept of leadership, which isn't a mandatory part of being a leader, and especially not a part of being an authentic leader. It's authenticity, vulnerability, these types of things. I don't like to say that they're hard, because I'm a big believer in that when we use certain language, that is what comes true. So if I say it's hard to be authentic, then people think it's hard to be authentic. And theoretically, it should be the easiest thing to be. It's not that it's hard, it's that there is fear. And that you mentioned this as well, Shawn. There's the fear of, like, what is someone going to think? Or even now, in the context of what we're talking about today, this reset. Well, yesterday I went to work and I wasn't vulnerable. So what is going to happen now when I go to work tomorrow and I'm vulnerable, right? People are going to think I'm weak. People are going to think I'm weird. People are going to be confused. But I will tell you this, when what you do, the actions you take, how you show up is in alignment with who you are and what you believe, what people actually see is a glimpse into the truth that they didn't have before. So the likelihood that they are going to judge you or criticize you in a negative way, when what you've done is you've now opened the door to more trust in a relationship, you have given them the opportunity to contribute to their team in an additional way, right? I think we sometimes forget this as leaders, is that when we show up and we say, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
We have the answer. We don't have the answer right now, but between all of us, we are going to figure out the answer, and I'm confident that we are. This is and it's funny because, like, I've heard Jeff say this before too, is that the leader's job isn't to have all the answers to all the questions all the time. It's to be able to lead the people in the charge towards the goal. It's about taking care of people. It's about, now you guys are learning some of my definitions of what a leader is. But nowhere in my definition of a leader is that I know all the answers all the time. Like, I just don't. And my job is to put the right people in the room to answer the question, right? That means I need people. And teammates, I have seen this every single time, you guys. When you give teammates I'm thinking of one example where I had a teammate who did not step up and they did not last for very long. But most of the people who have worked for me, when you're like, hey, we have this problem and we need to figure out the best way to deal with it, it gives those people an opportunity to show off what they know, to use their knowledge, to heck, maybe give you a glimpse into their personal brand so you can be a better manager to them, right? Like, creating this space, it's scary because of the fear we associate with it. And, like, no. Can I guarantee that nobody's going to criticize you? Nope, I can't. Again, I guarantee that when you talk about it on social media, you're not going to get a troll who says something annoying about what you have to say every single time. No, I can't. But when you are authentic, when that is actually coming from a place of authenticity, when you are doing the things, showing up, taking action in alignment with who you are, very rarely do those things really bother you, because you are doing what you feel is right. And it is easier to do what you feel is right and get criticized for that than it is to do something you don't feel is right and get criticized for that. No matter what you do, you can get criticized for it, especially on social media, right? So it's just a lot easier to show up and stand for what you believe to be true. And then when someone criticizes you, you're just like, oh, they don't get me, right? Like, you clearly don't know me. This is my default response when I see people who are like, oh, blah, blah, blah. What you're doing is not helping people. And I'm like, well, I disagree. And everybody is entitled to their own opinion. I cannot control everybody's opinion. That's not the job of a leader. It's not a leader's job to control everybody's opinion, to make sure you think good things about me, right? No, I'm here to stand for these things. I'm here to help you accomplish certain goals. I'm here to take care of you. I'm here to help you grow, right? Like, these are the things. Again, these are my definitions. So use your own definition of a leader. But when you are showing up and taking those authentic actions, that is you doing you. And one other thing I want to add here, because like we're talking a lot about vulnerability and showing up and being vulnerable. Every single one of you guys shows up to be vulnerable in a different way. Absolutely. It looks different on everybody, right? So just like authenticity, like, we all have different faces. We all look different, right? Our authenticity is equally different. Every single person has a different version of authenticity. Every single person has a different version of vulnerability. Right. So how you show up and be vulnerable in front of your team, the words that you use, the times where you think that is appropriate, right? Like, those are all based on your personal brand. And so even though that's why I love when you think about these things like vulnerability, that's a skill. Being vulnerable is a skill. You need to practice it. If you are practicing it in a way that feels not authentic, you won't keep doing it because it doesn't feel right for you. And so it's figuring out, it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle, you guys. It's about trying on these things and conceptually saying, like, okay, I get the benefits of being vulnerable, sharing that I'm a human, being able to get support from my team when I am dealing with something big, right? Like, there's so many benefits of this. And how do you implement that? How do you implement vulnerability? How do you create spaces for people? How do you create a conversation, right? These are some of the other pillars that we talked about in general. And so, like, there is a unique way for you to do that as the authentic leader you are. There's not like a book on how to be an authentic. No, let's not. There's lots of books on how to be authentic. There's not a checklist of the actions that you take to be authentic, because the actions you take to be authentic are different than the actions that anyone else takes to be authentic, because your authenticity looks uniquely different on you.
That's what's totally unique about it, and that's what I think we fail to realize, that each and every person is a leader in their own right once they go inside and be authentic to themselves, because there are characteristics and capabilities that you have that only you have. And when we try to mirror each other and bringing out those things and claiming it to be, okay, I see what you're doing, so I can do that, and then I'm going to be authentic. No, it's like an X on Price is Right. That's the wrong answer. And I had this quote earlier, and I was looking for it, and I found it. And this is what Oprah Winfrey says. She says she had no idea that being your authentic self could make her as rich as she's became. If she'd have known that, she'd have done it a whole lot earlier. And I really grabbed to that, not for the simple fact of who Oprah Winfrey is. I mean, no one has to tell you who she is. But what she said was all she had to do was be herself. She didn't make her riches trying to be anyone else. And if we get that confidence in who we are, we'll stop trying to pretend to be someone else. And all of that brings about authentic. And then that will show who's the leader, because when you go inside yourself, you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish. And this is the big part of my consultations and the things that I do. And I talk to people. When I talk to them about that vulnerability, blind yourself from the terms of it being hurt and painful. Open your eyes to the dynamic of how that this can just change your whole trajectory of thinking. When you start thinking of things in a different perspective, I think that, and I always got to go to the Bible, because that's one of my greatest books that I live by. The Bible says, such as a man is, such as he thinketh, so is he. So what that's really saying is that I get the power of changing my trajectory in my own tongue. So if I constantly sit around and say, yo, people are just not gonna hear what I'm saying. People are just not gonna. I don't have a voice. If I'm constantly sitting into that wallow or in that pool of pity, and I'm not proclaiming it or saying it or even acting on it or trying to be authentic with it, then of course those are the things that people will soon see you as. And they will soon put that on you as a title, and you will soon wear that as your garment. And when I say that as your garment, I'm meaning so that will be your characteristic of which you will walk around with that. And that will not be who you are. And what I'm saying in the fact of talking about that, when you delve into your authentic self, which is you, because I know you hear people all the time. You hear them on Clubhouse, you hear them on Instagram, you see the posts, you see the placards, you see, and if any of you guys get any chance, go to my website or go to my page and see my video of authentic leadership. When I talk about the story of that my dad told me about the lion in the jungle. That story is courageous because it just comes out of me. Say you never see the lion walking around the jungle, asking anybody in the jungle who he is, because he already knows who he is. He doesn't walk around talking to the birds and the giraffes and, yo, did you know I'm the lion? Did you guys know that? No, he walks in who he is. And when we decide to walk in who we are, then we'll see leaders. We'll actually see leaders because people will start to uncover some of the things that mama taught you, daddy taught you, grandma taught you, those values which you left behind because you've been so busy trying to mimic someone else. Mm-hmm. Those things that come into play and they'll guide your life. And in the essence of that, it's all a transformation that has to take place. And it has to be a mindset first and foremost. You have to change the narrative. And that's why I always lead with that, because the narrative has been played so long. And I talk about it in the essence of me being an African-American male, working in the legal system, studying to be an attorney, all traditionally white, old school organizations, correct? So my attitude of going in there, I'm not going in there to blend in. I have no ability to. I can't. So why would I go in there trying to be something that they've already established as themselves? I have to go in there as myself. I have to go in there with my thinking, my persona, my characteristics, my demeanor, what I think about it, and I just have to learn their rules. So when I learn their rules and I can apply me to that, that makes me authentic, and I stand out from all of those who try to do anything different. So when you have that of understanding who yourself is, I want to be preaching on that, but hey, this is what it's about. When you have that authenticness in you, the leader comes out of you. And that's what we really have to get down to the basis of it, no matter what it is, because we're not here to give you definitions of. Tracy, just put that out to you. Would you write down and you do that little list and write down there what you think a leader is? 9 times out of 10, and correct me if I'm wrong, put it in the chat and let me know. Or on the replay, do it as well. Let me know, don't a lot of those things that you write on that paper comes with the values that you was raised on, the things you were taught, the ways that you knew what was right and wrong. You're going to write that on that paper. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, you can't hide your values, guys. You can try, but eventually they're going to pop out. And you might as well embrace it because they're there for your life. These are the things you believe as a human that are good for other people, for yourself, right? And it's not about erasing them. And there's also, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, there's no right or wrong combination of values that you have, right? Some people have more family values. Some people have less family values. Some people have more wealth values. Some people have less wealth values, right? Like there's no right combination. There's your combination. And being an authentic leader is based on that unique combination of your values, not on someone else's combination. And the only other thing I wanted to share there, and Carl Shawn shared the quote from Oprah, but you guys, this is every single leader. And I challenged you one of these other episodes too, is like, think of all the leaders that you love and think of all the leaders that you hate, right?
Yes.
All of those people are doing it their way, right? Like I use examples like Hitler and Stalin and Donald Trump. And those are, would I lead that way? Absolutely not. I wouldn't. Do I believe the things those people do? No, I don't. But those people they're not trying to be anybody else. They were being them. And like good leaders too, right? Like Barack Obama. I always like to reference Abraham Lincoln, although obviously I was not around when he was around, but I'm a Dale Carnegie fan, and Dale Carnegie is a big fan of Abraham Lincoln. Or even like Oprah Winfrey, those types of people that you admire based on who they are as a leader. Maybe you love Brené Brown or Simon Sinek or Tony Robbins or any of those guys. You guys think that those guys are trying to be anybody but themselves? Absolutely, they're not. They're trying to be themselves. They are owning their space. They are doing what they do. They are creating solutions for things that they care about. Any of the people, even if you just look at the managers that you have loved in your experience, right? Like, were they trying to be anybody else? Because likely they weren't. And that is where you get to find this beautiful authenticity and a beautiful space in that. If you guys have ever read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, it was written in like 1930. And all of the concepts are equally relevant today. So still read it. Although some of the examples are very old school. But one of the central concepts, one of the central concepts in that book is creating versus competition, right? And so when we think that there is a ideal profile of a leader, we all compete to be that. And in the corporate environments and corporate ladders and all of those things are built around competition as well. In that, like, I got to beat someone else out to be a leader. No, you have to beat someone else out to be a manager. You don't have to beat someone else. Being a leader is how you show up. It's who you are. It's not a title. It's something that other people give to you. It's not something that you take, right? And so when you think of those things, how can you create? What can you create that's unique for you in the leadership arena? Nobody, I like always say this. So like, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a personal branding coach. And so I say this to my clients all the time. Nobody can beat you at being you. You will always be better at being you than anybody else will be. And like, I have clients all the time that are just like, oh, I just need to be more like you. No. Stop it. You came to a personal branding coach for a reason, not to be like me. I'm already taken, right? Like if you were trying to be me, I will beat you every day and trying to be me because I'm actually me. So don't try to be me. Be you. Be you, and nobody can beat you at being you. And this is equally relevant in whatever, like looking at it from a leadership capacity isn't any different. When I show up and I be the leader I am, nobody can be a better leader than me. Mm-hmm. And there's certain people who will love to be led by you, and there are certain people who will hate to be led by you. And that is also part of being authentic, right? There's going to be people who like you. There's going to be people who hate you. That's just life. There's 8 billion people on this planet. We were not made to be liked by everybody. We're meant to show up as our authentic self so we can find our people. And we can lead our people, and we can inspire our people. And there will always be people who don't fall into that category. And this is why, again, when you're looking at that exercise, I don't like you to make it about anybody else, because you might be managing somebody right now who's not your people. And in the end, you want to be surrounded by your people. So that's the last thing that I have today. You are the best version. The best person you can be is you. You will always win at being you. So focus on being you. True. It's only one you.
Yes, it is no better you than you. When no one can be you better than you. Like all of these cliches when it comes to you, they are exactly true, because no one can be better than you. You are the ultimate you. I think someone had told me when I first started talking about it and talking about what I do, and I was like, I don't really know how to consult people to talk about vulnerability. This is when I first got started. And I was like, how can I do this as a business? How can I really do this as a business? And they told me, his business coach told me, my man Joe, and he said, what you have to do is understand your story. He said, because your story will become your product, and that will become your business, and that will become your service. And I looked at that and I was like, how do I make that my service? And he said, tell your story because it's only you. So if you're sharing what's about you, or if you're delving into who are you, no one else can no one else can monopolize that. No one else can get on that. No one can take anything from that. No one can even add anything to that. Like
And
you
no
are
one can tell
you.
you you're doing it wrong either because they don't
Right.
know.
Right, they're not you. So it's just amazing. It's just amazing. You guys have been amazing tonight. We're gonna wrap it up. My friend has a sushi appointment, so
Oh yes, I have a sushi date with a
she
friend
has a
tonight, and
sushi
we
date.
haven't been for sushi in like close to a year, so I'm so excited.
Yes.
Also, I want to, because we're always like, we're here on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern, except not next week. Next week,
No.
I am in Canada, and next week is Canadian Thanksgiving on Monday. So we will be here on Tuesday,
Tuesday
October
the
12th. Same time though, 6 p.m. Eastern, for you guys who are watching it. And watch for, if you guys don't follow Shawn, follow Shawn. And it's the invite and everything will be on his page. So definitely do that. And we're gonna keep talking, you guys. We had I want to thank everybody for getting in the conversation today. We had such an amazing group of peeps who are just
I got her
living it up in the comments.
big time. I got Tracy's LinkedIn down below as well. Make sure you follow her, Brand That Speaks. And of course, you can follow me as well. So we got down there on there. So you guys come back again for another wonderful episode of Authentic Leadership and 101. Can't get the 101 because we're in school. This is a class. It's continuing education. So we will see you guys on next week. Remember Tuesday at 6 p.m. because it's going to be Turkey Day in Canada.
Yes,
So
and I will be far too busy stuffing my face with turkey.
And she will be stuffing her face with turkey. So don't look for her to be doing anything on next Tuesday. But we'll see you on next Tuesday. Thank you guys as always for showing up. Everyone in the comments, just everybody: Charlene, Robert, Zadina, Sabrina, Jeff, Kate, Kathy. We thank you guys for coming out. We couldn't do this without you. And go check out the replay. I will be dropping the hashtag replay. Continue to put your comments in there and tell us what you think about Authentic Leadership 101. You guys have a lovely evening. And Tracy, I will see you on the other side.
See you next time, everybody.
Bye bye, guys.